Hey all, it's Ashley and I'm here with my mentee Eryn, who used strategies from the Mentor Me Accelerator to more than double her salary. I'm so excited to share her testimonial with you. I love sharing how they first learned about me and my work, talking about what made them invest in their career development through mentorship, what they learned in the program, and how they leverage the strategies they've learned here to make more money and have more impact. I know that for so many professional women, career development can feel so isolating. It feels like, when am I going to be able to make more money? How am I going to be able to do that? Is it possible for me? And so I really feel like these show you that it's possible. These remind you that you're not alone, that the desires that you have for yourself and your career development are not silly, they're not unattainable, they're absolutely desirable, and you can see women doing it just like you. So I'm so thrilled to have Eryn join me in this conversation and just talk about what she learned in the program. I think it's so valuable, again, to hear these testimonials, because I think when you're in the thick of it, you can often feel like, oh, that's not possible for me. I just have to stay here another 3 years, another 5 years, another 10 years. I'm never going to be able to make more money, to have more impact. There's no way that I'm going to be able to elevate my career. Depending on the community that you're in, maybe you've never known anyone to get a raise or a promotion or to advance their career. You just may not feel like that's possible for you. And so I hope through hearing Eryn's story, you can see how that's possible, and really use it to elevate in your career. So hopefully Eryn will be joining us here to share. Really excited to have her on. And as she's joining in the space, I'll just talk a little bit about Eryn's backstory so you can learn just a little bit about her, and I'm sure she'll share some of this as well. Eryn is, like many of the women that I serve, she came to me with a ton of expertise, right? So she came to the Mentor Me Accelerator with, lots of knowledge, lots of expertise, having worked in her current role for many years. And like a lot of the women that I serve, basically her scope of work really just kind of gradually expanded over time, right? It just kind of gradually kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is a phenomenon that happens with women, too often. Like, professional women are working in a job and they're doing good work, and just over time, it just seems like their scope of work is just growing. And so, your boss is like, hey, can you do more and more? And you're maybe not getting compensated more and more and more. And that can be a really frustrating experience, right? You just feel like, I'm doing more work, I'm taking on more responsibilities. Maybe I'm training people, I'm teaching people, I'm doing social media, I'm doing project management, I'm doing operations, I'm doing program development, I'm doing client acquisition, I'm doing this. Like, you start to just, do more and more and more at the job, but you're not earning more and more money. You're not getting higher level titles. You're not learning more about your industry. You just kind of feel stuck. And so, and this is the experience, like I said, of so many professional women, that they feel like, I'm doing more, but I'm not earning more. I'm doing more, but I'm not growing in my career. I'm not elevating. And, as a mentor and as a professional career coach, this is something that I'm regularly concerned about. Like, I hate to see women, who have lots of skills, have lots of knowledge, not elevating in their career. And this is a space where I am constantly, wanting to help the women that I serve. And so, see if we can get her in here. Hi, Eryn.
Hi.
So glad to have you here. Thanks for joining. I'm so excited to talk about your new role and to share your story with this audience. I'm going to be asking Eryn lots of questions about her experience in the Mentor Me Accelerator, what she learned from the program, how she leveraged those strategies to make more money and have more impact in her career. So if that's something you're interested in, have questions about that at any point, you can type those questions in the comment section. So I'm so excited to ask you about your experience in the program. But I first, Eryn, want to start by just asking you to share how you first came to learn about me and my work. How did you first uncover me on the interwebs?
It was actually a direct referral from a friend of mine who apparently was a
Yeah.
classmate of yours. And so I just was kind of mentioning feeling kind of stuck in this process and trying to figure out like how to basically like leverage my experience in a way that I didn't know how to do it
Yeah.
on my own. I had been working like with a family business a lot, so it's very hard when you work for yourself or you work in a small business environment for you to hone in on your skills and like articulate them properly. And I kind of just reached a limit to what I could do on my own without some intervention. And so that's how I got here.
Yeah, and I love when I get direct referrals. In fact, in 2023, I kind of counted up the women that I serve, and I would say like half of them were direct referrals, right? And I love that because that means that I coached, I mentor, I supported someone in your inner circle, and they were like, "Hey, girl, I trusted Ashley with my career. You should do the same." And that's how I use these lives too. Not everyone, in every circle has a direct referral to me, but someone hearing your story and seeing how you leverage the strategies that you learned in the accelerator to advance your career can help them see how they can do it themselves. So thank you again for being willing to be a part of this conversation. I know it's really going to help someone. And I think that what that experience that you talked about, right? This idea that like I had reached my limit of what I could do on my own is really a common one, right? And not every woman that I serve has like worked for the family business for a number of years, but maybe they've stayed in the same organization for 10 or 12 years. Maybe they stayed at the same entry level position well beyond entry, right? And so it's a very common experience that professional women, like, I have all these skills, I have all this knowledge, I have all this expertise, I've been taking trainings and certifications and trying to do all this stuff on my own, and I'm not really seeing results. And so they kind of reach that point where they were like, hey, I need to raise my hand and I need to get some help. And I'm so glad that you did. So when you reached out, for help, as you think back to that initial call that we had where I was talking to you about, what's going on in your career and, what do you desire for your career over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months, what were you learning about yourself when you were going through the kind of onboarding process, or kind of learning more about the Mentor Me Accelerator and my approach to mentorship? What were you learning about yourself, or learning about my approach that made you say the Mentor Me Accelerator is a good fit for me?
I think the biggest takeaway from the initial call is literally skill
Yeah.
articulation. I think that was key to this whole thing. Like, there's nothing else that we dug into other things,
Mhm.
obviously, along the way, but that was like the main thing. I think that we tend to try to have conversations where you may even like minimize what you're doing and how you do it. And so just being able to articulate that appropriately and in a way that is like equitable for you and like for who you're talking to is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so crazy that you say that, because it is the cornerstone of the Mentor Me program. It's the differentiator. It's why my mentees are so successful and why they see success so quickly. It's not because I give them some certification at the end of the program, or I, teach them how to negotiate salaries higher than anybody else. It's really my expertise in skill articulation and combing through your background and combing through your skill set and figuring out all the things you've done in volunteer projects and on your job and the stuff you didn't realize you did that was actually valuable, like combing through all of that and helping you raise the level of articulation, raise how you talk about that so it can be aligned with higher paying, higher level roles, right? And I'm actually hosting a skill articulation lab. It is the foundation of Mentor Me programs. And you just heard Eryn talk about how transformative it was for her. If you want more information about that, and to register, I definitely encourage you to go to my website. And I love that you spoke about it. I didn't have to bring it up. You were like, oh, skill articulation. So the girlies don't want to miss that. It is transformative. And that's an opportunity for you to get access to that skill articulation lab without having to join the full program. And generally, I do not offer that. So I definitely encourage those of you who are inspired by Eryn's story to get access to the lab. So let's talk about your entry into the program. So, you had that initial call with me. I was talking about skill articulation and how I could help you with that. You were like, yes, I'm going to invest in this program. You joined the Mentor Me program. And one of the things that often people have the most trepidation about is, are they going to have access to me? Like, am I going to disappear once they like pay into the program? Like, I see her online, I see her on live, but like, I don't know, like what's going to happen when I get into the program. So can you talk a little bit, Eryn, about sort of my presence in coaching you in helping you through the assessments and helping you through the homework and sort of coaching you on skill articulation and the other things you learned in the program. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think that the platform in general is very helpful. Like logging in and being able to kind of organize your thoughts and kind of figure out how to kind of pose your questions based off of the prompts. I think the way that the sessions were like organized in terms of how you start and how even something is we don't even like get into the resume right away, which is something that at first you would think that like that's the first thing that you do, right? Like I'm on a job, I need a resume, right? But it doesn't go that way, and it was actually very helpful to not do it that way. And that kind of like, I think that the questions that you asked and how they asked them and kind of the prompts for the assignments kind of help you understand me
Yes.
and kind of getting an idea of like what I want and how maybe like down the line I may say something that doesn't align with like what you've already heard me say that I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then maybe, months down the line, you're starting to feel like desperate for something. So you start to like change up what you were beginning because, in the beginning, you're very like, oh, I'm, leaning in, doing all the
Right.
things. And then after a while, you start like scrambling and start making up stuff. And like, I tried this. No, you won't. Like, stop. So that was very important. And so just when you respond to things and like the platform tells you that Ashley's online, like it lets you know. So it's
Yeah.
like a really good communicative tool, kind of as if, you're in an organization using something like Slack or whatever
Mm-hmm.
else is the same level of attention and like access. So
Yeah, I'm glad that you felt that level of attention and access. And I do think that that is required for transformative career development, right? Like, I am not one of the career coaches that sell templates and like do like, I don't know, like random, workshops for free, right? Like, I don't do that because I know they're not going to be transformative. I only offer things that I know you're going to get a tangible benefit from. And so I'm so glad that you felt that access and you felt like, you were able to reach me and get the coaching and direction you really needed. And so you talked about skill articulation as a standout resource for you in the program, teaching you how to speak about your skills in a way that will really make employers take notice. Is there any other pieces of curriculum as you reflect back that really stood out for you? Maybe it was values exercises, maybe it was materials, right? Resume, cover letter, LinkedIn. We did a lot of work on interview strategy with you and really inviting you to talk about all those metrics. Are there any other things when you think back to the curriculum that really stood out for you?
I think all of them were very helpful, but I also think that aside from skill articulation, the aligning with your values is
Yeah.
probably the important thing that's going to come up later. So like when you are going through this process and you're looking for roles and you're doing these things and really like getting a feel for values is something
Yes.
that was very helpful. And um, which I know we'll get to, but I think like the role that I obtained kind of like aligns. It's so crazy that like some of the values that they listed and named as an
Yeah.
organization were like the things that I talked about in the value conversation with you. And so I was just like, it kind of
You're like, check,
lines up
check, check.
right, of those things off. And I think that that's really important because also one thing that I can appreciate, like we'll lead with, oh yeah, there was a salary increase, there's all those things, right? Because we all do want money, of course, right? But I think making sure you're getting it in a way that makes you feel
Yes.
good is very important. And not like chasing after a thing just because there's money associated with it. And so I think like really naming your
Mhm.
values is important, because then even sometimes when you function, you don't necessarily put a name to the things that you're doing. So it
Yes.
forces you to name it and eventually like claim
Yeah.
it and figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it. So that was very
Yeah.
important as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And, session one is all about skill articulation. Session two is all about value alignment. And it's true what you said, Eryn, is that those are the two least sexiest parts about career coaching, right? So when I talk about career coaching online, most people are like, are you going to help me with materials? Are you going to help me learn how to negotiate? Are you going to help me learn how to advocate for myself and manage up? And I'm like, I sure am. And then they get in the program and I'm like, let's talk about our feelings.
Right. I want to,
And they're like, have I been scammed?
right.
But on the back end, I have a mentee in front of us that got a $75,000 salary increase, more than doubled her salary, and says the most important parts of the program were skill articulation and learning my values, right? And so I hope that those watching this will begin to understand that one of the reasons why you're challenged in your career, why you're kind of going in circles, still making between $60,000 and $80,000 annually and feeling very stuck there, is because you need support, not in your materials. You don't need to do nothing else with that resume, girl. Like, it's fine. You don't need to spend no more time on LinkedIn. You need to back away from the computer and actually think about, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you value? What is guiding your decision making? And in the Mentor Me Accelerator, we really work to build that matrix so that then I can guide you in helping support, those lesser important things like your LinkedIn strategy and interview strategy, so that you can actually make more money and have more impact. And I really appreciate you saying that, because, you know, I know it's true, but I also know it's not sexy. And so I just honor, what the algorithms will allow. But I do think that it's important for folks to hear it from you, that like, you need this kind of strategy to see your kinds of results. So let's get into the results. Tell us about this role. Like, what is it about this role that attracted you? As you think through the curriculum of the program, when you first saw it, what made you say, yes, this is aligned. Yes, this is aligned with my strengths. What about the role really attracted you?
Um, it was one thing that was very important for me for like values and kind of what we talked about and what I wanted was impact.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of bridging, um, being of service, but also being impactful
Yeah,
at the same time, and also not being broke while doing it.
that part.
So that was important to me. Like I think in going through this, I kind of learned so many different things about where to look for roles, right? Like some people, you may be like raised under a school of thought
Mm-hmm.
or like, oh, not for profit means
Yep.
broke or poor, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and then learning this is no, change it from not for profit to philanthropy, and
Yes.
salaries change.
Yes.
Like just little things like that kind of opened me up to that. And then also like the mission and vision of the organization that I do work for, just aligned perfectly. And I think that like I've always had this, there was always like a thing because you mentioned it, but like, okay, I worked for a family business and have been doing that for years, right? And to an extent, there's always going to be a
Mm-hmm.
connection to that. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's the life that raised me, but also it's like an opportunity for me to like branch out and utilize those skills in a way that, makes me happy and more fulfilled. And so that's kind of how the role came to me. So it's literally like, okay, Eryn, you're doing all of these things for this small business and you're doing it every day, and you don't love doing all of these roles at the same
Yeah.
time. But now you have a role where you advise other people on like how to manage a small business from a space where you are like doing all of these things and you're kind of organizing things for
Yeah.
them. And so interesting that like in the role that I'm doing, which is like consulting and instructing essentially, I'll be talking to like smaller business owners or like startups and talking to them about what values align with their business and like all
Yes.
things, right? And so I was just like, oh, this is good. And also it's like with a company that like values like social entrepreneurship, and so it also lets me explore those elements of myself as well, so it kind of just worked out all together.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled for you. You're just glowing, and I'm just so happy for you. I remember the Eryn that came on that initial call. It was like, I've been working for my dad for 15 years. I've never done anything else. I'm the social media manager, the ops manager. I'm the client relationship person. I send emails, I order
Yeah.
supplies. I mean, you literally were what we call a Jill of all trades. You were literally doing everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so many women can relate, right? Your scope of work started like this, and it just got, anytime there was somebody who needed to do something, Eryn was to the rescue. And I'm so glad that you were able to serve as a utility player for so long, but you don't have to stay stuck in a utility player role. And I think your testimony is a beautiful example of that. So as you think through going through that interview process and like, finding the job, applying, submitting your materials, going through the interview process, are there specific ways in which you sort of, came back to the curriculum that you learned in the Mentor Me Accelerator and applied it? Can you think of any specific instances where you were like, they asked you a question or you had, to respond to something, or, even as you were like, going through the offer, was there parts of the curriculum that you kind of came back to and said, okay, let me do this because I remember from the Mentor Me Accelerator curriculum, I need to, apply this strategy?
Yeah, I think culturally we have this thing where like, oh, people are like, oh, that little something,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
We preface something
Yeah.
with
Yo little
and
this,
so
yo little that.
I'll be able to do that, right? And so I think that in certain situations when you start to feel stuck, you start to speak that way
Yeah.
about like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And so what I realize is like, no, you may not feel it, but you're actually doing like bigger things, right? So you're doing them and you have to talk like it. And so that was probably the main thing that I came to the most often is like every little thing that you have done isn't like minimizing at
Yeah.
all. It's not like something that you should downplay. And so that was really like the biggest
Yeah.
takeaway about it, because also if you're in a smaller environment and it's not as though you're like, oh, I am, I've gotten all these awards for being corporate team player and blah blah blah,
Right.
get that, right? Because you're just
Yeah. You're working for, the local whatever. Like
right.
there's no award ceremony
There's
at your
no,
job.
right, there's no trophies, thank
Right.
you, but like there's nothing for it, right? So you just kind of do it, so you start to talk about things in that same way, and so you just have to pump yourself up in a different type of way, which is the main takeaway that I took from it. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this as if it's such a small thing, because it's not.
Yeah.
It may be small based on like, I don't know, like business classifications or
Right.
anything like that, according to whatever type of standard, but it's not small like what you're
Right.
at. And so that was probably the main piece. Like that was the part that I honed in on the most and made sure that I clearly identify that and articulated
Yeah.
that very clearly. Yeah.
I remember being in a session with you and we were working on materials and you're like, I work for a small business and we have, $7 million and something. And I was like, this is not a small business. Like, I know that you think it's small, like maybe in your community it's small, but this is a full-fledged functioning business, and we need to talk about it like that. We need to stop saying it's not a, you don't sell scarves on Etsy, right? Like, this is a business that we need to really talk about. And so that quantification, you know, kind of elevating your vision, I think, I'm so glad that resonated with you, because I remember laughing with you about that. And I'm
like,
so glad
girl, not little. I'm like,
that's not little. You're doing big
right.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not just from like a cheerleading perspective, or like, I want to encourage you, but in a way that helps you elevate your thinking, which will elevate the way you talk about it, which will elevate your presence, which will elevate your salary. Right? So yes. So let's see. There's a couple questions in here. How long is the program typically, and what is the required investment? So the Mentor Me Accelerator program is a 90-day career advancement program. In that 90 days, you and I will meet weekly, actually twice a week. You'll have access to me. So we'll meet weekly in a strategy session. Before strategy session, you'll have a homework assignment, an assessment, a quiz, you know, something you have to submit to me that helps me evaluate where you are in your career development based on, you know, a series of assessments. You'll submit that to me. I'll give you detailed and personalized feedback. I send that feedback back to you. And then we meet weekly in a strategy session where we sort of go through the places where you have gaps, where you need support. And then you implement whatever I teach you in that session into the industry. So this is not like a master's degree where it's just like a thought exercise. No, we're like learning things and applying things, learning things and applying things. And so that's happening weekly in strategy sessions. You also have access to me weekly in office hours. So it's just like stop in, drop in. You can ask questions. You can request feedback in those office hours. Mentees love that because it's just an opportunity to pop in and get additional support. And the investment for the Mentor Me Accelerator program right now, so the investment right now is $4,000, and there are payment plans available. And so that investment, you can do a one-time payment, pay in full, or you can pay over time in a payment plan. Lots of my mentees consider the payment plan option because that works better for their budget. Eryn, I'd be interested to have you just kind of talk about the length of the program and the investment. Let's start with the investment first. You know, for lots of women who join my programs, it's the first time they've ever, you know, made an investment in their career development. They've never sort of paid into getting help in their career. It can be a scary investment for a lot of people. Maybe they feel like, you know, I can't afford it, you know, things like that. Can you talk about like how you made the decision to make the investment and kind of what were the sort of sticking points for you?
Yeah, so I had to decide like, okay, Eryn, like you have wasted money on dumber things. Just dumb stuff, right? So there's that. And then also I had to look at it and say, well, if I yield what I'm supposed to yield from this program, then that's an investment worth taking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like we all like talk like self-care things and all this other stuff, right? But you have to like commit to doing some of the self-care things that really let you like do the self-care things that you want to do. So maybe you're not at, I don't know, like one day you go from like the local massage MB to going to like the nice place later because you got the money to do those things, right? And so I just had to think about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be doing, and I just had to commit to doing it.
Yeah.
Not that it, but
Yeah, I love that perspective. And I mean, one of the things that I'm so clear on, I'm never afraid to talk about my price. I'm never afraid to talk about the investment because look at the return. I mean, Eryn paid, your program at the time you joined the program might have been a little less, but Eryn joined the program and let's say made an investment of $4,000. She now earns more, like she got a salary increase of $75,000. She paid in 4 and got 75. We're talking about more than a 50 times return on her investment. There is no better deal. The cost of the Mentor Me Accelerator is less than one master's degree course. One master's degree course, not the whole program. One master's course is around $3,000 to $4,000. One class. My program gets better returns than the whole degree, right? And so I mean, the investment is really, it's a no-brainer, especially because of the payment plan option. And I think what you said is real. Like, you talk about, oh, I want to prioritize self-care. 2024 is all about me. It's hard to be all about you when you're making $50,000. Like, it's just hard. Like, you don't have enough money for me, right? And so I think that, when you can earn more money, then you can take the day off without guilt. You can go to the really nice spa where you can stay all day and they give you a robe and slippers, right? Like, you make this investment so that you can have better investments in yourself in the future. And I think that that is a really powerful testimony. What type of fields do you specialize in? So I primarily serve women in corporate, nonprofit, and educational leadership. So corporate, nonprofit, and educational leadership are the sort of fields that that my mentees see the most success. I have deep and immense experience in all three of those fields. I have a PhD in educational leadership. I've worked in corporate for Fortune like 30 companies. I've worked for Target Corporation, JCPenney Corporation, at the corporate level in both of those organizations. On the nonprofit side, I've worked for Habitat for Humanity, and done some work with other large nonprofits. And then in higher education, like I said, my PhD is in education administration, and I work in the field as well as coach in the field. And so lots of expertise in those spaces. I serve women, like in corporate, like in tech, accounting, finance, human resources, like almost any sub industry in corporate I've served. In the nonprofit space, I serve women in social work, in case management, in family practice and community development. And then on the education side, I served women in K through 12, in higher education, in student affairs, academic affairs, faculty development, international development. So my expertise is vast across those fields. Thanks for asking that question. What does the time investment look like on a weekly basis? So I'll turn this over to you, Eryn. Can you talk a little bit about how much time you were spending both on the curriculum and on applying the strategies in industry?
Yes. So you get like ample time to kind of work it. I think in being like honest with myself, there were like some hiccup days where I was like, my brain is not putting this together. Like, it's just not happening. Like, it wasn't happening. But committing to the weekly strategy session calls were really important. But I'm also like a night owl, so it was a few hours a week, like committing to it. But it's not one of those things where you feel like overly pressured to do something, because you do have ample time to kind of do it. And I would just like use my time, and so that one day I'm staying up till 1 o'clock, I'm just applying for stuff and kind of like applying strategies. So it doesn't feel like a lot of pressure from the actual time commitment standpoint. It's just kind of how you organize your time to manage tasks. Yeah, so yeah, it's a few hours a week.
Yeah, we typically say that, mentees who are successful in my programs, right? So women like Eryn, when you see me celebrating women with a $75,000 salary increase, 50,000, 30,000, 20,000, those women are spending typically at least 2 hours a week, on the curriculum, and then the time it takes to like actually be in strategy session with me, working through things, with me in the strategy session. So we say somewhere between 2 to 3 hours a week at minimum. Obviously, the Mentor Me Accelerator program is that you get in, you get out what you put into it. I'm going to show up for session. I'm at session every week on time, ready to teach you. If you show up, you'll get taught, you'll see results. But if you slack off, if you don't attend, if you're wishy-washy, then you will not see the results that women like Eryn see. So it does require like a commitment to the program. But I mean, think about like what you're going to do between now and April 1st. Like, you're going to do a lot of things. You could do those things and not make any more money and have any more impact, or you can do this thing and see massive salary increases, massive value alignment, massive enjoyment in your work, right? And so like the 90 days going to pass anyway. Like in 90 days, time's going to pass. And it's like up to you to think about like how that's gonna, what's gonna happen for you. So, Eryn, I want you to talk to the woman who's maybe like, watched me online. She's, seen your testimony. She's maybe followed me for weeks, maybe months, and is like on the fence, unsure of if she should invest. Maybe she should keep trying to apply for jobs by herself. Maybe she should, switch industries, go back to school, maybe get another degree. Like, what would you say to the woman who's kind of on the fence? What would you say to her today?
Like, if you are gonna gamble on anything, gamble on yourself. If that's what you're faced with, right? Like, I think it it can only kind of like lead you in one direction, right? So worst case scenario, you now understand yourself in a way that you didn't before. Worst case scenario, you may like go through this process and maybe you realize, you know what, like I need to reevaluate where I need to be, but you won't know until you keep like bumping your head and the kind of like wandering or in the wilderness on your own. So I think like creating community and like picking up as many tools in your chest that you can is important and very helpful.
Yeah.
So I would do it. And again, like I think if you kind of add up all the nonsense we spend our money on like a day-to-day basis, because I know I do, like coffee every morning. I mean, like if you just add up those things and like add up what you're missing out on, or maybe like experiences you don't get to have because you don't have the money that you need, like think about the risk reward factor there and just deviate.
Yes. I love that risk reward factor. I mean, and I think that, like I know that money is not frivolous, right? Like I am so not a shamey, sleazy sales kind of person. Like I understand that this is an investment, but I also understand that so many women simply can't afford to make so little money anymore. So many women simply can't afford to stay stuck in a job that's not serving them anymore. So many women simply can't afford to be battling with their boss every day about stupid stuff, right? So many people can't afford to stay in jobs that are no longer serving them. And so if you can't afford that, then you got to be able to afford the investment for this program. And a $75,000 salary increase is nothing to sneeze at. So I'm so proud of you, Eryn. I'm so honored to serve as your mentor. Thank you for trusting me with your career development. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for taking action in your career development. And thank you for your willingness to do the work, right? I like to invite women into my programs who are going to do the work, and you did that. And look at the results. Look at the results. Like this is massive. And I just could not be more proud. I'm so proud to serve you. I'm so proud to know you. And I'm so proud to say I'm your mentor. We talked about investment in self. It is an absolute priority. And one of the best investments you can make in yourself is where you work. We spend so much time at work. I mean, we literally spend 40, 50, 60 hours at work. You want to do something that actually is going to serve you, and you're serving, your audience or your community in a way that values you. So thank you all. I'm so happy to have you here. So grateful for this community. If you have any questions about Mentor Me programs, want to learn how to join, want to have a free call with me, you can go right to my website at mentor-me.org or slide in my DMs. I'm always happy to answer questions there. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.